This podcast is brought to you by Wise, the app for international people using money around the globe. With Wise, you can send, spend, and receive up to 40 currencies and save up to 55% compared to major banks. Plus, Wise won't add hidden fees to your transfer. So whether you're buying souvenirs with pesos in Puerto Vallarta or spending euros to tip your Colosseum tour guide, you know you're getting a fair exchange rate with no extra markups. Join the 15 million customers who choose Wise. Download the Wise app today or visit wise.com/US/compare to learn more. T's and C's apply. Hey y'all, it's Nikki, and I'm here to remind you to go see the Jaws exhibit at the LBJ Presidential Library before it's gone on October 19th. Now, you probably heard that before he wrote Jaws, Peter Benchley was President Johnson's speechwriter. Well, this exhibit is about the journey of Benchley from White House speechwriter to best-selling novelist to devoted conservationist. Don't miss this fascinating look at the story behind the shark that changed everything. Head on over to lbjlibrary.org and get your tickets before it's too late.
According to a recent report that seems very legit, Austin had more reported ghost sightings last year than almost any other city in the country. So today on CityCast Austin, we're revisiting my conversation with a ghost expert to dive into the eerie, the weird, and the wonderfully haunted corners of our city. It's Thursday, October 9th. I'm Kelsey Bradshaw, in for Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. I'm Kelsey Bradshaw, the editor of Hey Austin, here with Janine Plummer, who founded Austin Ghost Tours. Hi, Janine. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, hanging in there. Any ghosts in your house right now?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay.
No, but yeah, when things are crazy in my house, yes, I definitely go, hello, and then it's normal for me.
So Austin is a fairly old city. It was founded in 1837. And when it comes to paranormal activity, how does Austin compare to other cities?
That's a really interesting question because for sure, there are ghosts everywhere on the planet.
Right.
They are referred to in every culture, in every country, all over the world. So I would say the Austin ghosts are generally, compared to various places around the world, quite fun and nice and communicative.
Okay, that's the kind of ghost that I'm interested in, is like the nice, fun ones.
Yeah.
I feel like ghosts get a bad rep. Like, I feel like when we talk about ghosts, it's always like something really scary, but there's also like really lovely, nice ghost stories and just people trying to connect with their family or friends, you know, from the beyond.
Which is the majority. The majority of, like in all of Asia is ancestor worship. I mean, and in China, it's just, there's a collective awareness that our people that we care about that pass on are, sort of with us. They are our kind of guardian angels. And we talk to them, we miss them, we love them, friends, family. And so that's the majority of what makes up these experiences that are unexplainable in our environment that we attribute to being ghosts or spirits. And that's why when you see on the TV shows, it's called provoking, where TV wants you to be scared because that sells. And so they're like, hey, ghosts, come out. And they're like yelling at them to get them to like do something for the camera. And I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, that's somebody's grandmother, like tone it down, like,
Well, and I feel like that's such a good thing to keep in mind. Like, that is someone's grandma. Like, stop yelling at her.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way that you look at that. Other than being nice and friendly, are there other factors that make Austin's ghosts different from other ghosts?
I would say the location and the relationship with water that is Austin. So water is notoriously powerful. Like in indigenous cultures around our country, the United States, there's an element to spirituality in water. Like if someone drowns, there's a fear that spirit will get lost and not be able to be reconnected to some degree to whatever it is that they would be reconnected to. Water is very powerful. connector for spirit. The Capitol used to have an artesian well, like on the grounds that the whole city would partake of. So was 8th and Congress Avenue. I mean, there was a lot of water in Austin. We're right above the aquifer and everything is limestone. These are all conductors.
Oh my God. It's an audio medium, so you can't see my face, but my eyes are so big. That is so interesting that it's like a water thing for us.
Yes. And in an area, I mean, look at Barton Springs. In an area that is a semi-desert, so here we have the Colorado, and we have Waller and Shoal Creek, and we have the aquifer, and we have these artesian springs. New Braunfels is also a hotspot for water and ghosts. So, but because of all that water, yeah, that's part of the whole Austin thing, ghost-wise.
So wait, are there ghosts at Barton Springs Pool?
Yeah, sure. Haven't you heard? Well, you have a combination of, first of all, a natural water source in a semi-arid area, and then you have oak trees. Oak trees are so, like any kind of very large old tree that has stood the test of time, has energy to it. And Barton Springs is surrounded by it.
Whoa. That is really cool. Okay, I'm going to Barton Springs after this. Well, so I hear that you have some ghost stories for us, and I know one of them is about the Texas State Cemetery, which was, that was established back in 1851, so it's really old, and it is a cemetery, so one could assume that there'd be a lot of ghosts hanging around. But I hear you have a story specifically about Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, the sniper who was killed at a gun range by a fellow serviceman in February 2013.
Yes. So in 2020, I decided to do a podcast, and it's called Haunted Texas and Beyond. And I have a friend who is, whatever you want to call it, a medium, a psychic, an empath. They're just people that are born into this world with more than their 5 senses that can pick up on things. When I decided to start Haunted Texas and Beyond, I wanted the first show to be about interviewing someone who grows up in the world with these other abilities, this other awareness. And so we conduct the interview, and towards the end, I just say, hey, do you want to tell us a ghost story? And she said, yes. She told me this story. Soon after Chris Kyle had moved on to the next adventure, she had friends who were visiting from Thailand, and they wanted to go to the Texas State Cemetery, and in particular, they wanted to see his grave. So they went to the cemetery and walked all over the place, just looking, and never found nor saw wherever he was buried. And they were like, well, the sun was going down. They had come in separate cars. So the couple left, and she was there getting in her car, and she hears a voice that says, I'm right over here. And so she turns and follows that voice to Chris Kyle's grave, which at that time didn't have his headstone yet. But anyway, he's communicating to her, and he's like, hey, he was a big presence, but more importantly, he was saying, I'm misunderstood, and some people are getting things wrong about me. But he was also at peace. But he was like, hey, I want to give you this message. Meantime, the sun is setting. She's in the cemetery in urban Austin that she's not familiar with. And she's like, hey, I got to go. I don't want to be here. The sun's setting. I promise you I'll come back. And there was a definite feeling of regret that she was pulling away from this entity that was clearly trying to communicate with her. So she left, and she never went back. So she's in this interview with me, and as she's telling that story, all the hair on her arms raise, and she's just like, oh God, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And she was saying, to this day, I regret never going back to communicate with this person who clearly wanted to be heard. And that was it. She went home. I put my dogs outside, closed the door, and then I went upstairs to where my bedroom is. And I'm there for just a few seconds, and I hear the dogs just running up the stairs. And I'm like, huh. And I definitely, like, what's going on? And I walk downstairs, and the door is firmly shut, and the dogs are in the house. So something had opened the door and let the dogs in and then closed it. And immediately I thought of well, there was this empath just in my house telling this ghost story. And so I made the connection and her having the goosebumps. And I sat down on my sofa because also at the same time, my dog is shaking so badly that it's like he's visibly terrified. And he's staring at the door that had just apparently opened and closed. So I sat on the sofa across from the door and I opened it a little, like I opened it because I don't know. I was just trying to get the dog to be like, hey, look, it's just a door. Everything's okay. I don't know, whatever. But I am sitting there and the dog's staring at the door and then the door closed itself. And no, this doesn't happen. And no, it wasn't windy. And no, it was just clearly something was opening, closing the door. So I called Carla and I said, hey, this weird thing just happened to my house. I think it was related to the ghost story about Chris Kyle. And she said two things. When that was happening to me, she heard a loud door on the second story of her house. She's alone in her house, just slam shut. And it wasn't a door opening and closing like my house. It was so loud that you could hear it all. And she has a big house all the way downstairs. And also when I was talking to her, my voice changed into that of a man. And so she wasn't hearing my voice. My words were the same, but what she heard was a man's voice saying those words. So we're like, whoa, this is crazy.
Oh my God.
But we're both just like, whoa. And so I said, let's have our second podcast be about what happened during our first podcast. So then we reconvene a week later. And I know enough about the spirit world to know that it is a crafty puzzle of a situation. It's almost never just one little incident. It's a piece of a puzzle of communication. So that's why I brought professional recorders. And as we start recording and I start telling her what happened in my house, a giant thunderstorm started like out of nowhere. The house turned dark. And during that process of talking about what happened in the ghost story, one, we caught on audio recordings on just amazing voices, men, a male breathing, a man saying hello. But Carla sensed that there was some big personality in the room. And I kept saying Chad Littlefield, and she was thinking it was Chris Kyle. But either way, it was a big presence.
That is wild. So was there like ever a conclusion? Like, did you ever find out what he was seeking from y'all?
Yeah, basically, this is he's a popular person and he has children and
right.
But it was just that he was misrepresented. And that was the thing that came across the most. He was a good time party guy. So there's a lot of focus on an aspect of his life, but it misses the fact that it misrepresents him because in fact, he was like a really funny, fun-loving, drinking guy.
Yeah, he was like, I want people to know I was also a person and not just a sniper.
And not just a sniper and not just murdered, and not just a foundation for raising money for whatever. I mean, he was a fun guy.
Imagine this, your next podcast recorded in the same studio where you're hearing this right now. That's Trick Hat Workway. Trick Hat is Austin's most hospitality-driven co-working space. And yes, they've got a pro-level podcast studio designed for creators, teams, and businesses who want high-quality recordings without the stress of hunting down space or gear. Just show up, plug in, and hit record. Outside the studio, Trick Hat's got you covered. From private offices to dedicated desks, they offer flexible co-working options to fit any business or entrepreneur's needs. And can we talk about the perks? Freshly brewed coffee from Manana, endless snacks, and crispy Diet Cokes. But what really makes Trick Hat different is the energy. From weekly networking opportunities to community trick chats, it's more than a place to work. It's where Austin comes to connect, create, and have fun doing it. Whether you're producing your next big idea or just need a space that feels good to work in, Trick Hat Workway is waiting for you, where it's always old Austin, new tricks. Visit trickhatworkway.com to learn more today.
I want to talk about Austin's Moon Towers and what happened there in the 1880s.
So the serial killings of 1885 and 84 and 85, I was in the Austin History Center, and at that time there was like one of the ladies who worked there, they knew me. I was always in there reading old newspapers, and said, have you seen this file? And the file was called The Servant Girl Annihilator. At that time, it was just like 2 or 3 articles. It was very non-researched or whatever. So, but it was easy just to go into the films and look up that date and collect all of the articles around that time. So that was me. I'm the one who did that and put those in that file. But I mean, it was a big deal. It was national news that these murders were happening. So when these murders happened, people could hear shuffling or glass breaking, or they heard something. And by the time they could go out to do anything about it, the murderer had already compromised the woman and, killed her and was on the run. And all of the murders took place near water. Again, people got shot on 6th Street all the time because there was bad whiskey, but this was intentional murder of good, normal servant women. They were good people. And so someone was killing them, for while they were sleeping in their houses. So the means to catch them was the hounds, the city hounds. So the one way to get rid of the city hounds was to kill near water and get in that water and escape through the water where the hounds couldn't follow you. And so when these murders were happening over this year, there was public outrage. People were just like, what's wrong with the police that they can't find this guy? And we don't feel safe. The citizens of Austin formed their own organizations to find out who's murdering these people. And when they got together to meet and decide, all these ideas came out. One idea, the 3 made it to vote. One was every time somebody discovers a murder, they go outside and start shooting their guns. So this way, it could alert everybody to start looking for the person who had committed murder. So that was on the table. That was a vote. And the other was to have a siren, sirens and bells. It was just to make noise so that everyone would run out and go and find this person. But the third one on the table was to illuminate the city, basically city lights. And that's the Moonlight Towers.
Wow. I literally had no idea.
Yeah. Like light rail, it took a really long time.
Yeah. But so did they find the killer that way?
There's endless debate about that. There's a person who wrote their thesis at UT that they did catch the person. That person got on a train and moved to the next town. I think the heat got on, and there at that time there was a ton of transient labor because the Capitol was being built. I think it was a transient person who was working in the city doing something very physical because he was a very strong person, and it was a man. And I think he just moved on.
But is there a rumor that it's also Jack the Ripper in the UK?
Yeah, no way.
Okay.
It was not. It was somebody from the United States of America who was who knew a lot about anatomy, and maybe that's a connection with Jack the Ripper. But I would say no, because their method of operation, the way they killed was totally different. And if there's one thing we know about serial killers, they have a pattern.
Right. Okay. Well, I trust you with my life after this conversation we've been having today, so I believe you.
Yeah. This Jack the Ripper didn't violate any of the women. He just disembodied them, and this guy didn't do that at all.
Okay.
He stuck a spike through their head, made it so that they were alive and couldn't move. So it's just very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that imagery.
When just imagine, no one's heard of these murders, and these women literally had an ice pick through their ears.
Yeah.
Or through their temple so that they could be outraged while alive. How incredibly bizarre is that,
Yeah.
I mean, Jack the Ripper just cut you up into pieces. That's old school stuff.
No, that's diabolical. And I would say if I was I would probably be haunting Austin forever. I would have so much left to say, as it goes. Yeah.
So just keep in mind that when I first discovered those and did the Servant Girl Annihilator walking tour, every location where one of the girls was killed was a parking lot. Now, this is pre all of this development. So these were all parking lots. And, nothing thrived there. Now they're like hotels, and you have to believe that some weird stuff is happening in those hotels.
100%. So I was told that you have a third ghost story and you wanted to reveal it on the podcast.
Yes, I was with my kids, and we were back when they would hang out with me. We would get into the car and go on weekends to, small towns around Texas and visit the jailhouses and the downtown square, etc. And we did that in LaGrange, and we went to the old jailhouse, which is now a museum. It just had that vibe, and I said, this place is haunted. Well, I mean, obviously it's a jailhouse, and one of their displays is like the hanging rope that they hang on people.
Mm.
And they said, oh yeah, but it's haunted by a woman who starved herself to death after killing her farmhand. And they also mentioned she was a mother, and just things that connected with me. And so I decided to find out who is this woman? So this was when the World Wide Web existed, had come into the world. The Fayette County Historical Society, which is Fayette County, Texas, had decided to take old newspaper articles and publish them in their local newspaper, Fayette County Footsteps. It was just like a little column. One of them was the trial of Mary or Marie, her trial. There's a big part of Central Texas that is German immigrants. There were self-sufficient German communities there where they still spoke German. It was Catholic. Most were all Catholic. And so she was from one of these communities. When represented in the newspapers of the time, she was illiterate. She wasn't illiterate. She only spoke German. So she was called a lot of bad names, like fat and, just illiterate and ugly and just like, whoa, you as a woman and as a mother know that there's way more to this story than all of the men who are writing about it. Why does a woman kill her farmhand? And she claimed in the newspaper briefly, like in a long article, there would be like 2 sentences where she's saying, I was abused. And then they move on to what she looks like and what she's wearing.
Classic.
But I was able to find her grandson. In my interview with him, he had never known anything about his grandmother. No one ever spoke of it. It was just evaporated. The grandson had read the Fayette County Footsteps. His grandmother was the infamous Mary Dock. All the family started saying, who's Mary Dock? Is that our grandmother? Like, just what is this? This murdering person is related to us. She wrote a 10-page letter and said, this is my side of the story, and I will never speak of it again. And in it, she tells a very different story than what the newspapers tell, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she remembers the night of the murder. She remembers, a man named Henry Mueller, who was also the town blacksmith, coming and fighting with the farmhand to get him off her property, but he wouldn't leave. Basically, he was an abusive man who'd been married twice, who's had 2 wives who he had hurt and were terrified of him. And Mary Dock's husband died, and she had a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and like a 6-year-old. And she hired this man, Sturva, to come and help her on the farm. And he was divorced, needed a job. And there it is in High Hill, Texas, where there's not very many people. And the daughter remembered that her uncle had to come in and put locks on their doors and windows so Sturva wouldn't go in. And in the interview I did with her, she's like, I don't know what he wanted. We were too young to know. But every time he would try to get in their room, Mother, Mary Dock, would have a talking to. And so there's clearly something. But it was not allowed in her trial to bring in that he was an abusive man, and she was afraid of him. I mean, she says in her 4-hour interrogation, I was scared of him. Well, she's so non-emotional about this. All she was like, he was just a bad man. And I took him out. But how did she kill him? So she had him dig a 6-foot by 4-foot and 7-foot deep, what was supposed to be a cellar for when there were storms. But the daughter remembers it as being a flower bed. He dug his own grave. She was like, hey, could you just dig this giant hole to the farmhand? And in her mind, it was 100% premeditated. So that was what got her the electric chair. And then she shot him and put him in that hole and burned it.
Listen, good for her.
And so she was not a weeping person in the eyes of the paper, but in the eyes of her daughter, she cried the whole time she was in the jail cell while she starved herself to death. So from the time she was arrested, it was 3 months and she was dead. Well, in the end, what she thought was, I probably should have thought of a better way, because now I have to live in jail, and I don't get to be with my children. And this little girl, Annie, had spent her entire life with this memory of her mom and watching her starve herself to death. And her life was kind of messed up because of it.
Well, absolutely. This is a story you could tell today about a woman being abused and defending herself.
Yeah, anyway, that's the story. So that's how a ghost tells their story.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I find a lot of stories, is it starts with a ghost story and goes to like, okay, why are you still here?
Right.
What's going on?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I feel like that's kind of beautiful. Obviously, everything that happened is terrible and I wish it hadn't happened. But I love that you were able to go and get her story.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about that she was fat or not pretty or whatever. And it was actually something happened to her and she defended herself. And I think that's like a pretty lovely way to think about ghost stories, of just talking about, people have something to say and they didn't have enough time, here on this plane to say it. And finally, for real, before we go, what site in Austin would you say is the most haunted?
Truthfully, Cedar Springs. There's this area that's near all the medical buildings on North Lamar. Cedar Spring, Seiders. There's a bike path that goes through it. It's next to a creek. I would say that is really haunted. People who ride their bikes down that way, people who walk around there. If you go there, you can see there's an embankment. It was where all the indigenous people, like Barton Springs, but it was also near Wheatsville. Wheatsville was a freedmen's colony built along those shores, which was moved away. So that used to be all of it. So I would say that's by far, if you want to experience something, go there.
Well, I will head out there. I need to go to that. And thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find a link to Austin Ghost Tours in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. If you really love CityCast Austin, help support it by becoming a neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye!